Hey folks, Matt Kuda here. Welcome to another live broadcast from Matt Kuda Nature Photography. First of all, a happy belated Veterans Day to those who served in the military. I come from a family with a lot of military people in it. My dad served in the Marine Corps. My uncle served in the Army. My grandfather served in the Navy. My other grandfather served in the Army. And so I'm really the first generation that didn't have to serve or want to serve necessarily. Well, I would, but did not serve. So I have a lot of respect for you, and hats off to all our veterans out there. The big deal today is this is the last day of my sale, my Black Friday sale. Now, I don't know how much you know about the fourth quarter of the year, but it's typically where most companies run all their sales. And that's no different here. You'll never see these sales run again except in the fourth quarter. And it's a great opportunity to get one of my pieces much cheaper, much more inexpensive, and I highly encourage you to do it. Here's an example that was just sold this week of my ruby-throated hummingbird on metal. Very cool, very popular item, and definitely something to consider. So I think I've pretty much talked about what goes on behind the scenes the last couple of weeks. I'm not going to kind of belabor that. I do want to discuss it just a little bit here. And then I'm going to move on to talk about one of my images and what the behind the scenes of that image was. And then for the next several weeks, I'll talk about, I'll pick an image and I'll tell the story behind that image. But, it was interesting. I had a customer contact me this week who wanted, two images that were 22 by 22 inches. Okay. That's a fairly large, photograph, which I encourage you to do. Get the bigger sizes. They have more impact and so forth. But, she was very, very interested in it. And in the end, she couldn't afford to purchase those pieces. But, I felt like, we price these images the way we do because they're worth it. They're absolutely worth it. And the reason they are is because, and I talked about this last week, I'm not going to just maybe a quick 2 minutes here. What goes into these photographs, when we look at this photograph here, for example, this is not a photograph that you walk out back and you take with your cell phone. Okay. This is not a photograph that you walk out back and you just snap with your digital camera. This takes preparation. It takes time. It takes setup. It takes patience. When you get a photograph like this, you're talking about a 3-flash setup here to freeze the action, a very short flash duration. You're talking about sitting in a blind for hours upon hours to get this shot. I can tell you that in this series, I photographed this same hummingbird for a week straight, and this was the image that I liked the most out of that shoot. And you're paying for all those. I mean, when you pay, believe me, when you figured out how many hours I put into this versus what I'm charging, it's probably not even enough, to be honest with you. I mean, when you look at the hours of labor and then post-production where I actually go in and, I dodge and burn areas, lighten and darken basically is what that means. I adjust contrast. I make sure the colors stand out, the gorget here on the bird's throat, I enhance that a little bit to make it look more like it actually looked. So I'm always going for that scenario. I mean, you've got this natural gradation here, which was done on purpose between the light and the dark on the image. And so, you're paying for all that. I mean, it's an art form, right? It's okay. Granted, I am no painter, I'm no sculptor, but in a lot of ways, that's what you're getting. You're getting all that experience and so forth, and time and effort behind the shot. So, just wanted to dwell on that a little bit, because I think there's a disconnect with photography, particularly where people think, oh, I can just take my cell phone out there and photograph that, and that's just not true. And there's even some photographers out there telling people that, and I just think it's so silly, because believe me, if I could use my cell phone right here, and I have a very good cell phone, iPhone 12, if I could use that to take these photographs with, and be able to produce the quality, I'd probably do it. The bottom line is that you can't do it yet. We're not there yet. So just throwing that out there, just for people that don't understand that, because it's not a matter of it's just a matter of educating people. It's not really, there's just that with photography, it's always kind of been that way. There's always been the kind of that disconnect. Oh, I can just use my cell phone, or I can just take a picture, snapshot of that or something. And maybe you're okay with that kind of quality. And I'm not speaking to you if that's you. I'm speaking to those that want extremely good, high quality, high sharpness, color, something they can show to their friends and say, hey, check this dude out, man. He just took him like a week to do this. And he had to do all this and that and so on. And then he did all this stuff on the computer to make it enhance it and all that kind of stuff. So that's what you're buying. You're buying that. So I'll leave it at that. Don't forget, 40% off Black Friday sale, ends today, period. End of Black Friday. Offer code Black Friday. And honestly, at this point, for those that are watching this right now, I'll tell you what, for those watching this right now, I'll give you an extra 10% off. I'll tell you what, 50% off just for today. I'll call it Black Friday 50. Give me 20, 30 minutes after I get done with this. I'll tell you what, if you want that Black Friday 50 deal, go ahead and email me at matt.kuda@mattkuda.com, or comment below this thing. I will send that to you personally. I'm not going to actually broadcast that beyond the people that are watching this, or who will watch it later on. I put it out there after, but the deal is just for today, period. I'm not going to go any lower than that. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to talk about today is I told you last time that I was going out and photographed some white-tailed deer. Now, I grew up in the northern tier of Pennsylvania and southern tier of New York State. Now, if you're familiar with those areas, you will realize that is a very rural area, full of dairy farms and very large white-tailed deer. I now live in North Carolina. The deer are a little smaller here, but they're still really cool and interesting. But I wanted to show you this one picture that I took the other day. This is a white-tailed buck. This is actually a 8-point buck. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about deer behavior here. Now, when I'm shooting this, I am in my blind. Okay. I'm on government property while I'm photographing this, so I can't set my blind up ahead of time. I can't go out there and just leave a blind up. I can get ticketed for that. So I have to use a portable blind. Well, when you use a portable blind, the deer are very suspicious, right? It was funny to watch them. I was sitting there very still and quiet, cameras all ready to go. And all of a sudden I see off to my left, there's a doe coming up next to me. And she gets about maybe 20, 30 yards in front of me, heading away from me to my left. And she just stops and whips her head around and looks right at me. Now, I haven't moved at all, right? So two things happened probably. One, she smelled something different. Although the wind was pretty much dead that day. She was so close to me, she could probably smell me. So she smelled something different, first of all. So she turned her head, and then when she saw the blind, she really got curious. Now, white-tailed deer will do a number of things if they're alarmed or if they are kind of investigating. The doe was alarmed, kind of, not to the point where she was snorting. Snorting is a behavior that they do to warn other deer that there's a problem. But what she would do is she started a long arc out around me. And what happens is they will stop. She would stop about every, I don't know, it doesn't matter, maybe every 30 feet or something. She would stop and she would just pound her paw down or pound her hoof into the ground like that. So when a deer does that, they're doing two things. They're either alarmed or they see something unusual and they're trying to get whatever that is to respond, either to show themselves as a threat or, respond to what they're doing. So I just sat there still. Now, I was moving my camera at this point. I had to, because I was photographing her while she was doing this. So she gets all the way around. She takes this arc at about 30 yards out around my blind like this. As she gets off to the right side, something over here behind me spooks her, and she bolts. Well, her mate, basically, her buck, I guess was kind of watching all this from a distance. He was another 30 yards down away from her. Well, I guess he kind of heard that paw pounding that she was doing. He came up to investigate. Now, when he came in, it was a little bit different. And that's this guy right here. When he came in, he came at me. Okay. He came off to my left and he kind of started to turn and he would stop and he would look at me. And they both knew I was there. Okay. This was a foreign object, but they didn't know what I was. It was just a big blob, out there. They didn't know what I was. They probably could smell me, but they couldn't really see me. So as he moved in front of me, he would stop and he would do the paw thing again because he's trying to get me to do something. He knows there's something there. And this picture, if you look, he's actually putting his paw down right there. You can see in that paw. I shouldn't say paw, but his hoof is actually going into the ground. So this picture also, at the same time, he is turning directly at me. So now we're in the rut. Right now, the rut is the time of mating for the white-tailed deer. So we're in the rut, and he's coming, directly at me, right, directly on me. And what happens is he's kind of stopped, right? He was kind of getting a little aggressive, maybe, or a little curious. Hard to tell at that point, but he came up another 10 yards closer and he just stopped and looked at me. And I was firing away. Now I have a Sony A7 III, which has a silent shutter. So he couldn't hear the shutter firing. So then he would turn broadside to me and he would start making that arc just like the doe did. And he was following that doe's print where she was putting her foot down. It leaves a little smell behind or some kind of imprint, they say, when they do that. And he's coming around doing the same thing. And again, not startled, not really upset, but just very curious and wondering what's going on. Well, he gets all the way around to the right over here, and whatever's down in this corner, I don't know if there were some people over in there or what, but there was something down off to my right behind me. I couldn't see. And as soon as he got down over there, he'd turn around and bolted. So kind of an interesting take on the whole thing. I think it's kind of important, I think, to understand what's going on behind these photographs. I think it might be kind of interesting for you. I don't know. The deer behavior is rather interesting. They're a very social animal. They have all kind of interesting and strange behaviors. From, they will kind of herd up sometimes, and sometimes be by themselves. Sometimes a buck will be by himself. Sometimes he'll be with other bucks. Sometimes the does will all be together and no buck will be anywhere. And sometimes there'll be a doe by herself and a fawn or whatever. So anyway, interesting photograph. I had a good time. It was a good time of rest and relaxation. I wasn't expecting anything phenomenal. What I do like about this photograph is that it does have an aspect of framing here. So as you're looking at that deer, he's looking right at me. And off to my left there in the photograph, there's a tree, and then you got a tree coming down, and then another one over here, and it frames that buck right in the middle. He's just a nice buck. He's a good example of a buck. He's probably fairly young, but good size antlers. Certainly, I it's probably 2 or 3 years old. I would guess, minimum. But yeah, he's is interesting. Interesting area there where I was photographing as well. I was photographing down by the Yadkin River. And the Yadkin River has overflowed its banks recently several times. And what's happened is it's left this this very like fine dust, like silt behind where it was in there. And so what they're actually walking in is like this fine dust. And as I was leaving, you could actually see it on my boots and my pants where that dust was just everywhere. And of course, it had kind of a musty smell down in there. But what that does, though, how that's helpful to the deer is and that's the reason there's so many deer there in that area is because, which I will not disclose here, but that area, what that does, that river bottom gets in there, and it actually eventually will increase the vegetation, which the deer then eat, and deer will eat shrubs of various kinds. They'll eat acorns in the winter a lot, typically, but they're very, they're herbivores, so they eat all that delicious stuff to them, the green. And so, when you get that river bottom in there, that stuff grows rich and luscious, and it's probably tastes really good to them, I would think. And then in turn, that makes the deer a little bigger. Personally, I think this deer is a fair size for North Carolina, and not a bad size up north either. I mean, certainly there's a lot bigger deer here and up north, but anyway, it was just a good time. I really enjoyed myself. I hope that I can pass things like this on to you, and you can kind of enjoy them with me. Anyway, just real quick reminder, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. My newsletter is an amazing way to get behind the scenes information like this, with just from your inbox. I will typically, if it's you have to understand right now it's a little different. If you're signed up for my newsletter, right now it's a little different because I'm running a big sale. So I'm spending all my energy on the sale because I got to make a living, right? And so, I'm all about that right now. But typically in a non-holiday season or whatever, you'll get one email a week. It will be a behind the scenes kind of behind the shot kind of thing where I'll have a different image every week that tells a story. So that's typically what I do. But don't forget to sign up for that. It's the best way to get information. Like right now I'm sitting here and I had 1 or 2 people that were listening. Now they're not listening. That's the thing with Facebook and with live Facebook, the person has to be online, and then they've got to actually be willing to listen at that point and have the time to do it. Most people go out to lunch or go out to lunch to eat, and don't have time for this type of thing. So, it is what it is. If you have an email you can go to and get the same information to me, that's a big value add. Okay. But anyway, go out there, check out that sale, guys. It's the absolute last day. And I just want to thank everybody for hanging in there with me. Sorry if I know some people are offended by getting sale emails and stuff like that. Sorry, I got to make a living, right? So, but I do try to have some value added to that as well, like this deer, and talking about how that all took place and so forth. So, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. If I don't get time to do a live event that day, hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Thanks for watching. Make it a great day and get out there and enjoy nature. Bye-bye.